So unfortunately, Heinrich is sick, so I'll be presenting on his behalf. I am not from the CSR. I'm from the Mandela Mining Precinct, but this is one of the projects that we are busy with. So I think I mean, most of our presentations, if we're from the mine, we always start on the stats. And if we compare the safety stats from now to compared to last year, there's an increase in the amount of fatalities here to date. And I think the scary thing is if you look at the amount of fall of grounds. So there's quite a lot of pressure on us to actually focus on how we can solve and reduce fall of ground fatalities and incidents. So yeah, I think it's a major concern. So I just think a reminder, and Prof. Stacey will be proud of these, or not proud, he might get excited about some of these pictures. But I think this is the real environment that we have our people working at. And obviously, I'm not sure if anybody's familiar with the process before we start mining or blasting. We have people going underground, and we call it boring, where they actually go into the panel or the face, where they actually have to hit the hanging wall to see if it's safe, loose or solid. So this project is focusing mainly on that. So on the left-hand side, we can see Sabu is, your pointer, okay, never mind. He's actually tapping and boring. But the whole idea is to actually bore to make safe, and then we can have our people to drill and blast and do the mining activities. So just on this tech or on this research that we're currently doing, as I've mentioned, we have to bore or whack the rock like that. And the concern is that when we are whacking, I always say whack because I literally have to whack the rock. It's dependent on the operator or the person hitting that rock, right? So you might have an older guy, he might not be as strong, and he might just be tapping it lightly. You might get a person that thinks it's a ring rather than a tooth, like I just did with a mic. So it's also dependent on the steel, or they're using aluminium, or they're using steel. So there's so many stuff that actually has an impact on identifying if this rock is solid and loose. And that's why we thought, let's introduce or look into some ways to make this boring or tapping more accurate. It's not to replace the miner and the tapping or safe making, it's actually to look at if we can help them. So I think what's also one of the stuff, why it matters, I think as well as people's got hearing issues, especially on the mines. But the striking is also the amplitudes, and this is where we become a bit more scientific, and this is probably where I will not go so technical. This is probably not in my front. But the whole idea is that some of the sounds that we do, you can't always hear or feel, okay? Not with a human ear anyway. And the whole idea was, can we then classify it objectively? And it's not dependent on the person that's doing it, but rather have a sound way to do it. So just on some history, and I think I don't, yeah. So originally the idea was to have it like earphone. Oh gosh, let me get out of here. It's just to test the sound of this device. But the whole idea was to actually see if we can have earphones or something around the ears, something on the stick, and whack it. Due to, and I think a lot of us that are in research in some other areas, there's always constraints with IP. So that whole project fell flat. It was done with the CSR and Mine Health and Safety, so then it was stopped. A few years ago, in 2023, we initiated the project again, and it was also a guy called Brink that did his PhD on some of the work with acoustics. So then we designed what they call the ITAD, Integrated Thermal Acoustic Device, and with this device, the whole idea was to have the acoustics and thermal combined. And to see if the thermal, the whole idea was if the rock is loose, it will be cooler than the surroundings, and obviously can we use sound. So we did a lot of work in the Rustenburg areas on the platinum mines, and there were some good results on the acoustic side, but we realized that on the thermal side we had very disappointing outcomes. The version 3 that we initiated, this was last year, we decided, okay, rather to trap the mines into buying a device, isn't there other way that we can get the mines to use the technology without actually buying the hardware? And we had some issues with the hardware as well. And that's how the device, the acoustic device started with us using iPhones. So I'm not going to go through this, but I think ultimately where we are now, we're busy with applied research portion. and we hopefully we will have some adoption and also commercialization soon. So it's been quite a long process. Okay, and I'm hoping that this will, it's not this one, it's the next one. So as I've mentioned, we've looked at iPhones, and people will ask me why the iPhone. Just because we've been using the iPhone for other projects as well that I'll take you guys through. It's quite a useful tool. If you remove the SIM card, then it's actually quite it is interestingly safe as well. So that's why we've opted for it. A lot of mines, even though they might not be using iPhones, they might be using the Androids or other devices. So if we can actually look at something that can be used on the multiple devices, it's yeah. And then obviously we actually also looked at collecting the data from different devices or two phone sets as well, and all the data was put together. So just as well to this is very as well how they did it. They recorded the information and went to quite a lot of the first phase with the iTAN we went to platinum. Last year, in the beginning of this year, we went to some gold mines just to collect some data. The whole idea was when the guys whack the rock, we collect some data or information that gets collected, and we're trying to get some trends and use some machine learning. And I think ultimately we managed to identify some of the rockiness if it's solid or loose. Um, there was supposed to come something up with the sound. So I think we just listen to this, and this is just an example um, of somebody hitting the hand. You can't hear if it's solid or loose. So now we expect our people to actually start and making safety decisions on that. We extracted 2,880 80 data points. I can't, let me see if I can go back. Yes. Um, and we try to mimic the striking of into the hang as the miner would do for safe for boring practices. And we try to classify the strikes as well. Okay, this is currently where we are. We've got Heinrich there underground, mimicking the boring exercise with a phone on the on the boring device. And you can see there's a little um, you can see over here while he's doing the tapping, this thing actually moves. There it goes. So you can actually have an indication of something solid and loose. So we actually managed to get a 97% accuracy from what the device managed to pick up compared to that of the miner. But 97% isn't good enough in our world. We have to get 99.999%. So we've done some great work. Obviously, we focus on quite a bit on the lithology side, and obviously to trying to get some real-time information through as well. But I think this is one of the big steps that we are managing to move the industry forward. As I've mentioned, we had some good results. The next phase will be to look at rather than having the device on the, while they're boring, is actually have it moved away from the person. So we are looking at some mounted microphones again, and we're reverting back to the whole thing on the head. We're looking at improved acoustic classification models, and then as well to look at can you get this app on different devices. Yeah, I think this is just one of the questions that were asked is why can't we get rid of scaling underground? There's a lot of sounding and then scaling and boring and then practice that's happening, and it's actually quite a high risk every time you have to go. So, I mean, there was, and hopefully Heinrich will do his masters on some of the work on this as well. But I think the big thing is to identify the risk, analyze the risk, and then obviously you have to evaluate. And that process that is supposed to happen as well is not always happening underground. It's quite a tedious process. And I mean, I was just thinking of myself, something is painful and hard to do, what are you going to do? You're going to take a shortcut. So we know boring and safe making is quite tedious. It affects people's, production as well. But yeah, I think we need to, and this is where we believe that acoustic will help. Another thing that we picked up, or what we want to do, is to pick up trends. So if you have your device and it picks up loose rocks in certain areas, is there a trend? Is there a reason why you always have loose rocks in a specific area? It might not be geological related, it might be face shape, the way they're drilling, blasting. And then hopefully we can actually use this information to do some forecasting as well, and also be able to intervene to ensure. So we've just got a plan profile on the left hand side, where the whole idea is if we can actually, while we're doing this testing and that, and hopefully it will become of a routine for the miner as well. As we collect data, can we actually use this data for some other enhancements as well? That's it. Thank you. Well, about my time.
Thank you, Michelle. Any questions? What? Oh, yes.
I actually have two questions, but let me start with one. I think the reason why you didn't meet the 99.99 whatever number was the fact that when you hit the rock or whack the rock, the angle at which you hit it will affect the outcome. So that's one thing. And do you agree with that, or not really?
I think the challenge that we have is we don't have enough data.
Okay.
So if you have data, regardless of who whacks the rock or what angle or what rock, if you can get that AI going and machine learning models working, so it's actually data. We don't have enough data. So in a sense, I agree, but you want people to whack the rock differently, if we can put it in very layman's terms.
Yeah, so that was like question one. Now question two. Can't you use a robot to do that? Because, I mean, a person can only whack the rock maybe once every second. If you were to have a robot, and of course it might be expensive, but you then might be able to get 50 times the number of results in the same time. But I mean, that's just the question.
Yeah, I think we all wish for robots on the ground. We won't tell our labor that though. But I think obviously there's not only from a cost perspective, there's quite a lot of other challenges having robots on the grounds. I mean, if you just think about Spot the robot, that dog. I mean, there's so many challenges, and underground, we might think it's better for robots to be there. They rust, they break, they also get dust and stuff. So I think we're not there yet. Hopefully, when we are older, there might be some robots doing the same work. But thanks for those questions.
Can I ask while Wesley's walking? He seemed to be hitting with a point.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So during manual bearing, right, at the beginning of the slides, there was this slide where there was someone holding the metal thing, and there was a round, I think, plastic fabric in front. I think that's used to sort of deviate the stones or rocks when they fall, because it can actually fall towards the person from along that. So what do you guys have in plan? I saw that there's a phone there, which is obviously a touch screen. It has a flat screen.
Yeah.
So what is in place to sort of just protect that screen from like sort of breaking, because a rock can actually slide on it?
So I'm trying to find that slide now, but I think the next, this one, yeah. So what we're trying to do is actually not have the phone on it. So the phone is just a device to record. The whole idea is to actually maybe not to have phones in future, but obviously we've got different ways to pick up the sounds and mimic it. So once I also present some of the stuff some of the other projects, hopefully people will see that some of it might be potentially be able to integrate at some point in time. But I think for me as well, personally, this is not Heinrich's opinion. I have a major big concern with the way we are boring or making safe, because we have people going in unsupported areas to remove rocks, then to go and support. And I got a lot of flack on this video, which is also my presentation. I got charged up by our fellow mining colleagues to say, how can you show a video of somebody standing in an unsupported area and doing this? But he's actually not there. He's some mission above on the back. And then I need to remove this video. I can't show this to people. And my response was, this is actually how our people are doing it on a daily basis. And this is still nice. So this is reality. How can we hide the fact that we've got people doing this, and this is actually close and whatever? Most of the time, it's actually quite at extended areas, and they actually have to. It's quite hectic. So I mean, this is a nice video to show compared to what our mining people have to go through. So I think we need to think about as well boring practices as a whole, rather than trying to find. Yeah, but that's my opinion.
Okay. Also, is he barring like on the roof of the tunnel, or is that like on the side walls?
So this was in the hang. So this was at a gold mine. But you can see it's a bit of the area where his head is actually really bored out. So the face is out there. But ideally what we have been testing is boring or testing above and in front of us, which has got, especially when we did the platinum side, was very similar, believe it or not. When it's loose or solid, those sound waves were very similar. The biggest challenge that we actually had wasn't the actual sounding, was actually external sounds. So if somebody opens a ventilation door, somebody starts drilling, that was the biggest issue. Yeah, but good questions.
I'd just like to comment on Adrian's point there. I was at CSR working there from, in those years, before 2015, when this project was on the go. And part of the concept was very definitely to mount this tool on a robotic platform and not, so it would go in there with, prior to people going in, even then having the robot insert temporary support if need be. And we even had at CSR a big, you could say, model stope where we could change the angle of the floor. We could put different material on the floor, see how the robots could cope. I mean, the innovative work was more around here. We imported robots that had been developed in Europe for use for bomb disposal, the things that can go in buildings and climb upstairs and climb over rubble. And I suppose, sadly, in my mind, that whole thrust got shut down. And I hope maybe the Mandela Mining Precinct might revive it again.
Do it again, but when we did, and it came back as 2 million rand for a tire, I was like, no, not happening today. So yeah, I think that we have looked at it. We did some testing on it, and then as well the angles were a major issue for these little cars. But I can share information on the work that we've already done with those platforms.